Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, about 1/3 away into the season with 56 games in, the Yankees sporting the best record in baseball, the first team in the majors to reach 39 wins at 39-15, including 23 at home and 7 at home, so the Yankees loving that home cooking. Yankees sporting the hottest starting rotation in baseball right now. We'll get into some of those numbers, and of course the Yankees now off to the best start, at least at this point in the season, since those 2001 Seattle Mariners, a team that had a great regular season. They got bounced out by the Yankees in the postseason. So we'll get into all of that. Had a little visit from Mr. Ohtani, and the Angels, kind of break that down quickly, and then go over the Yankees' latest sweep against those Detroit Tigers. But before we get into all that, I might have asked you a few times before, but if you haven't done it yet, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast. So you see me, you love me great, but you probably want to hear me more throughout the week, and I can't blame you. So wherever you go get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, whatever, iHeartRadio, go there, search Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe, and get additional content throughout the week. Again, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Now let's get into those Angels. So after picking up a Carpenter and splitting that 4-game series down in Tampa, the Yankees came back up to New York to start a 6-game home stretch, starting off with the Los Angeles Angels. Now, sometimes they're the Los Angeles Angels for Anaheim, sometimes they're the California Angels. They change the name of the team every year, but we'll just call them the Angels. They're visiting, and it started a stretch of strong starting pitching from the New York Yankees, where they'll go 5 games where the starters will go 7 innings and only give up 1 run or less, something that the New York Yankee organization hadn't done since the 1978 Yankees, and of course they won the championship that year, so maybe that's an omen of good things to come. So for the Yankees to kick it off, they had Jordan Montgomery on the mound. And again, this was the visiting Angels, and of course that means Shohei Ohtani, who always brings a lot of fanfare, a lot of interest, just because he's that unique type of player who can not only pitch but hit as well. So he's again like the Babe Ruth of this generation. And the Yankees kind of set the tone a little early on in the game. In the first inning, Ohtani did send a shot to center field, and playing out there in center field, the very tallest Aaron Judge leaped over the center field wall, robbed a home run from Ohtani, and that was probably a sign of this things to come for the Angels the rest of the way. Now on the mound for the Angels was an old friend, Noah Syndergaard, as you might remember from the Mets days, Mr. Thor. Took a few $1 million more to go out to Anaheim, even though he wanted to stay a Met. Of course, it only took like $3 million more to convince him to leave. Came in here and didn't really have much control at all. Went like 3 balls in both the first 2 hitters, DJ and Judge. And overall, the Yankees get on the board early in the first inning thanks to some doubles by Rizzo, as well as followed up by Gleyber Torres. Put the Yankees early a 2-0 lead, and then Matt Carpenter again. Get the Yankees picked up just before the Tampa series, hit a home run down there in Tampa. So his first bat at Yankee Stadium, and the veteran delivered with a home run to give the Yankees a 4-0 lead. And the Yankees would pretty much cruise along from the rest of the way there. Syndergaard couldn't get out of the third. Again, really had no control, and a lot of his pitches were up, and really Joe Madden, the manager, really couldn't figure it out. Coming into the series, the Angels had lost 5 in a row, and they were actually on the road for quite a while, so it might have been a little jet lag. We don't know the full situation, but at the time, Syndergaard was having a decent season, 4-2, so you figured it'd be a little tougher situation for the Yankees, but no, they beat him up, knocked him out, took him out early. But really, the story of the game was Jordan Montgomery, who I've been saying this a million times. The guy gets absolutely no run support. So this is a game where they finally put it together. The Yankees gave him some big offense. He pitched great. He was fabulous. Went 7 innings, only gave up 1 home run via home run. Other than that, he was very dominant. And the Yankees flashed him leather behind him. I mentioned before the leap and catch by Judge to rob Ohtani. And later on, IKF made a great play on Mike Trout. Great diving stab in the shortstop hole to throw him out at first. So again, great Yankee defense. Montgomery was fabulous. And the only time the Angels really threatened this game was in the 8th inning with Miguel Castro on the mound. At one point, they had a second and third with 2 outs, but he got out of the jam. And then after that, Trevino continued as he just continues to hit the ball much better now. Hit a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th. Gave the Yankees a 9-1 lead, and that would be the final score. Pretty much a laugher. Game was pretty much over in the first inning, and it was just great to not only rob Ohtani, but of course stick it to Syndergaard, who again you always see him as a Met, so it's always good to beat him up. And again, a couple of Yankee home runs, and it's just good the Yankees just kick off that series with a win. Now the second game, unfortunately, was rained out. So the Yankees decided to make up a doubleheader the game after that. Now, the way they do this, usually since there was a 7 o'clock game already scheduled, you figure maybe they'll have the first game at 4 o'clock and have it just back-to-back. But I guess, technically they weren't going to allow fans with 1 ticket to stay for the second game, so they wanted to break it up a little bit. So the makeup game was actually going to be 1 o'clock. So if you had a ticket for the night before, you had to go to that 1 o'clock game, or you couldn't see any baseball, or you could just exchange that ticket for a later date. So as a result of that, it turns out a lot of people did not even show up to that 1 o'clock game. The ballpark was absolutely empty. Again, when you heard the cracks of the bat, you could hear the cracks of the bat just because there was no people in the stands, no buzz, no humming. And it was kind of surprising because Ohtani was on the mound, and you would think that more people would want to go just to see that for the buzz of him. And so, but whatever, the Yankees didn't care. They just rolled along anyway. So Cortez took the mound against Ohtani. So you might say, maybe the Yankees' second ace versus their main ace, whatever you want to call it. But Ohtani really had nothing in this game early on. Matt Carpenter, who you would not think of the typical leadoff hitter, a 36-year-old kind of lumbering infielder/outfielder. But Boone's been doing this. He has no problem putting Carpenter in the leadoff spot, no problem putting Rizzo in the leadoff spot, no problem putting Judge in the leadoff spot. I don't really love the idea, but hey, look, it works, and it paid off. And again, the first at-bat on Ohtani, Carpenter worked him tough. 11-pitch at-bat, worked the count to 3-2, and then crushed a home run, gave the Yankees a 1-0 lead. Later in the bottom of the first, Torres would also add another home run, give the Yankees a 2-0 lead. Judge would get into the fun in the third inning, hitting a 405-foot bomb to left field, gave the Yankees at the point a 3-0 lead, and that would be it for Ohtani. Only went 3 innings. And really had no offense behind him. And again, Nestor Cortez pretty much cruised, breezed through 7 innings. Joe Madden, the manager for the Angels, felt that Ohtani might have been tipping his pitches a little bit. Who knows about that? But again, 2 starts at Yankee Stadium. You go back last year where they knocked them out in the first inning. They scored like 7 or 8 runs. But the game, unfortunately, the Yankee bullpen blew and lost. But they did beat up Ohtani last year. And now this year, also beat him up again. He couldn't go past 3 innings. Only problem with this game a little bit, they brought Clark Schmidt out in the 8th. Wasn't his sharpest. Put a couple of runs. Ended up giving up a run and then had bases loaded. Wandy Peralta had to come in, get out of that jam. There was a little bit of rain delay, a little bit. This kind of slowed the inevitable. Peralta came out, then finished out the frame, and ironically, of all people, Peralta striking out Ohtani to end the game. Just again, this is the way it was for the Angels during the season, and then the Yankees had taken the first 2 games of the series. So I guess the Yankees went into the clubhouse, maybe changed their jersey a little bit, took a little nap, maybe played a little wordy, whatever. And then you had the 7 o'clock game, which was probably the best game of the 3. Now on the mound for the Yankees was Jameson Taillon, and he was just about close as perfect you could get. Actually took a perfect game into the 8th inning. It's just unfortunate for him. The Yankees gave him absolutely no offense, so it was 0-0. Now, after the 7th inning, getting big outs against Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, you thought, hey, maybe you get the perfect game in because, if once you get those 2 out in the 7th, from there it's just the bottom of the lineup, which you would figure you'd get an opportunity to get the perfect game. But unfortunately, in the 8th inning, Taillon surrendered a double to Walsh. Walsh hit a ball, actually hit the glove off the glove of kind of Falefa. I don't know, he maybe could have made a play on it, I don't think so, but unfortunately it turned into a double, and then Kurt Suzuki would score him in on a double himself, and then the Angels would take a 1-0 lead. But fear not, in the bottom of the 8th, the Yankees would load up the bases, and pitch hitting for Higgy was Anthony Rizzo, and again, Rizzo just, starting to heat up the bat a little bit. It was a little cold a couple of weeks ago. Hits an RBI single, scores 2, and the Yankees went from losing 1-0 to taking a 2-1 lead into the 9th inning with now, of course, Chapman still coming back from the Achilles injuries. Put Clay Holmes in there as the closer. Now Clay, uncracked, seriously, a little wild in this game, actually hit 2 batters, and the Angels actually had bases loaded with 2 outs. We got a little scary there a little bit. A hit could actually swing the score 3-2, possibly 4-2, but Holmes was able to get a ground out to complete the win, and of course the sweep for the New York Yankees. And the Yankees kind of get back into the sweep mode, something they were doing very early on until they again had that little split down in Tampa. So the Yankees again took the Angels series, all 3 games, and it was just another great effort for the Yankees. Again, 3 strong starting pitching performances by Montgomery, by Cortez, and then capped off by Jameson Taillon. So fresh after sweeping those Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or the Anaheim Angels, or the Los Angeles Angels, whatever you want to call them, at least we could guarantee that the Detroit Tigers will always be the Detroit Tigers. So they come for a 3-game set at Yankee Stadium, and on the mound for the Yankees, Garrett Cole. Now you remember last time Garrett Cole faced the Tigers in Detroit, had probably his worst start of his career, had to get yanked out of the 2nd inning, and it was kind of a bit of a low period for the Yankees during that period because, yeah, the Yankees won that game, but you had that situation, and then the game after, where the Yankee offense, really lost in that 3rd game, couldn't muster up any offense, and lost like a real nail biter toward the end. And it was just a period of the season where the fans were frustrated because the offense was terrible. We weren't sure where Cole's head is or where he was at physically. kind of a low point. And then from that point on, the Yankees would start rocking and rolling to this pace where they're at right now. But for the Detroit Tigers, they come to town. Now, Yankee fans were bribed a little bit to come to this game. There was about 42,000 fans, reason being because it was Aaron Judge bobblehead day. But I don't think the Yankee fans really need to be bribed to come to this game because the Yankees are red hot and it's Friday night and good weather in the Bronx, so I think the place would have been packed anyway. But on the mound, as I mentioned before, was Garrett Cole, probably looking to get a little revenge, just again, from getting embarrassed last time with Detroit. And this was the vintage Cole that we thought we would get. Now, remember, previous game, the third game against the Angels, Tyone took a perfect game into the 8th inning. Well, Cole liked that idea, so I figured, let me try doing that. So he actually went 7 innings of perfect baseball himself. This game was pretty much a laugher early on. The Yankees got on the board in the 3rd inning against rookie Edwin Rodriguez, home runs by Trevino and Judge. And the Yankees would score a few bit more in the 5th inning, including home runs by Rizzo as well as Matt Carpenter. Now his 4th home run as a New York Yankee. So just how brilliant does that move look like right now? And, he has 4 home runs in just a handful of games for the New York Yankees. Ended up, people a 10-0 lead against poor Elvin Rodriguez, who later on after the game, it was obviously pretty obvious that he was tipping his pitches. I guess he didn't realize at the time. I guess, I don't know if the Yankees, whatever, they picked up on that. So kind of a big story around baseball. Even the Detroit press and Detroit Tigers themselves were like, oh, wow, we didn't even realize that. So kind of a revelation, but the Yankees seem to be doing that lately. Again, as I mentioned before, Joe Madden figured that the Ohtani was tipping his pitches, and I guess now in this case, this individual was tipping his pitches. So I don't know whether it's Matt Blake or someone else is spotting this stuff on the Yankee bench, but kudos to whoever doing that. But this game itself was pretty much a laugh for the Craig. Cole did take a perfect game into the 7th inning, but unfortunately, with 2 outs, Jonathan Scope would blow it, but it was fine. Yankees it was a breeze this game, built up a 10-0 lead, would end up winning 13-0. But again, as good as Cole's start was, and again, kind of continuing what I mentioned before, this little pace of strong Yankee pitcher of going 7 innings or more and surrendering 1 run or less. I'm going to call it a surrender any runs, but again, more strong starting Yankee pitching. But the story of the game was probably, which didn't get too much coverage, which was the story of Manny Banuelos. As you may remember, was in the Yankee farm system several years ago. The Yankees signed him off the Mexican League back in 2008. And with him, and if you remember our old friend Dylan Pentantis, as well as Andrew Brackman, were nicknamed the Killer Bees. And, they were kind of, they were supposed to be like the future of the Yankee starting staff. And, well, I guess of all 3 of them, only Dylan Pentantis really kind of became something. Was never a starter for the Yankees, a great starter, but was very, one of the best 8-inning setup men, going back, 2016, 2017 for the Yankees for a couple of seasons there. But unfortunately, he had the Achilles injury, went to the Mets, and then kind of fizzled out there. So really, of all 3 of them, only Pentantis kind of made it, and Banuelos was kind of floating around a little bit. He was with the Yankee organization for a number of years. Fortunately, they just finally decided to part ways with him in 2015, traded him to the Braves. Again, kind of bounced around a little bit. And then finally this offseason, the Yankees decided to give him another shot, signed him to a minor league deal. And with all the injuries to Chapman and, of course, to Jonathan Loaizaga and, of course, losing Chad Green to Tommy John surgery, kind of opened the door to Banuelos, so they brought him up here, and he finally got an opportunity for the first, again, he'd been waiting for 14 years to pitch for the New York Yankees on the major league level. And he provided 2 innings of shutout baseball. And it was a good story. And he actually wore number 68, which, if you may remember, that was Dylan Pentantis' number when he was with the Yankees, kind of sort of carrying that torch for the Killer Bees, which never worked out as supposed to be 3 great starters. But good story for Banuelos to close out the game. And the Yankees, again, the first game was a laugher 13-0. But it got a little drama afterwards because after the game, with Stanton and Tim Locastro coming off the IL, they had to make space on the roster and decided to option Miguel Andujar down to AAA. And for Miguel Andujar, when some players were down, he actually came up and he took the call, played some left field for the Yankees. As you know, he kind of started off at third baseman, and from last year and this year in spring training and all, worked his way to be a decent left fielder. I'm not saying great, but pretty decent. Has been hitting for the Yankees, and again, been part of this hot streak the Yankees been on. But unfortunately, being optioned down to AAA, I guess he just took that as some of it a burn. It's like, hey, look, what else do I have to do to stick around here? So he actually requested a trade, supposedly. Now, obviously, the Yankees at this point haven't made any moves there, but it seems like Anderha just wants his opportunity to be on the major league level. So we'll get a little into that afterwards. That was just kind of maybe the little negative Nelly of so far, of at least the Detroit series. So the second game, Luis Severino on the mound. kind of pick up the baton where he left off from Garrett Cole. Gave the Yankees another strong performance. The Yankees staff overall held the Detroit just to one hit the whole game. So no runs, one hit. That's how strong the Yankees starting pitching was. Again, 7 straight innings from Luis Severino, 10 strikeouts. Michael King will have take the 8th, and Clay Holmes would clean out the 9th for his 8th save of the season. And the Yankees with a 3-0, pretty much easy win. Home runs from Aaron Judge. You get another one, actually leading off as a leadoff hitter. Just kind of crazy, but I guess the guy could do it all. Home runs by Rizzo, and also a sacrifice fly from Josh Donaldson returning from that shoulder injury. Remember, he was out a little bit as well, just before the whole Jackie Robinson comments, and then he had the shoulder issue. So he's back as well again. So limited spots now on this Yankee roster, and again, part of the reason why Andrhart had to go bye-bye. But it did also, this game, signify the return of Giancarlo Stanton. So good to see him back in the Yankee uniform. And as red hot as Judge is, and now if he gets Stanton to kind of be what he was before he got hurt, this Yankee offense is really going to be very scary. Which brings us to the third game, which is probably the most exciting game of the 3-game set. Included a comeback win from the New York Yankees, their 15th of the season, which they lead the league in. As well, it ended up in their 6th walk-off win against something else they lead the league in. So again, leading the league in a lot of good stuff. So a lot of good stuff from this team. But on the mound for the Yankees was Jordan Montgomery, who in his previous start finally got his first win of the Major League season. Now this start, he wasn't as good. He unfortunately gave up 2 runs, so a very terrible pitch. He gave up 2 runs in the 4th inning, put the Yankees in a 2-0 hole. But our friend Joey Gallo, who has just been absolutely terrible this season, the fans been getting on him, hit a major 2-run home run in the 5th to tie the game up. I would say probably not only his biggest home run of this season so far for him, but probably since he's been here since a Yankee, probably his biggest home run in that big spot. Again, he's been pretty much, at least at the plate, a really big disappointment. That was probably his biggest home run. I can think of a game last year when they were in Chicago in extra innings, a game that the Yankees blew, and he hit a home run in extra innings and put the Yankees ahead. You might argue that one a little bit, but I think this, given the circumstances, is the way he's been off to a terrible start. This was a really good home run for him just to tie the score at the point. Now, he had another opportunity in the 7th inning with bases loaded, would strike out. So even though the fans gave him a little lovey-dovey for tying the game up, they had no problem booing the hell out of him for striking out in that situation. But luckily for the Yankees, DJ LeMahieu was up next, worked a walk to bring in the leading run at the time, so it gave the Yankees a 3-2 lead. Unfortunately, the Yankee bullpen, which combination of Schmidt and Castro, wasn't able to hold it, ended up coughing up the lead, gave the lead back to Detroit 4-3. But it was in the bottom of the 8th, and really this was all manufactured mostly by Anthony Rizzo. Got hit by a pitch, and as we know, Rizzo kind of stands over the plate and gets hit by pitches a lot. Able to steal second, so not the type of guy you would expect to steal. Now, thanks to a fielding error from Jonathan Scope at second base, Rizzo's able to take third. And then thanks to a kind of infield little hit by Gleyber Torres to Harold Castro third. Another fielding error allowed Rizzo to score at the point. Tied the score 4-4 for the New York Yankees. And again, that was pretty much all manufactured by Anthony Rizzo. Getting hit, stealing a base, having heads-up base running to get to third base, and then heads-up base running again, scoring on a throwing error by Harold. So that was all manufactured by Rizzo, but without technically getting a hit. And it was that very same Rizzo who would be the hero in the 10th inning. So the Yankees had to go to extra innings on this one. So Judge was at second base as the ghost runner because he made the last out previously. So that very same Rizzo would get a single, which would put Judge at third base, and then Josh Donaldson, again, kind of fresh returning from the IL, with his sacrifice fly deep to left field. For a second, they almost looked like a home run, but the ball was hit so far to the warning track, Judge could have moonwalked home, and he walked home very easily, and the Yankees took the 5-4 win, and again, another sweep for the New York Yankees. And for Jordan Montgomery, unfortunately, he ended that streak of going 7 innings and surrendering one run or less. He actually surrendered 2 runs. How dare he? But again, another strong performance for Jordan Montgomery and the Yankees rotation, not only starting rotation, but also the bullpen combined, again, the best team ERA right now in baseball. And if you just look at these Yankee starters right now, again, the only name that jumps off of you as, wow, a superstar is Garrett Cole at this point. But overall, just the way they're performing lately, I mean, you got to look at this starting 5 here, and this is probably the best Yankee rotation we've seen probably since the 2003 Yankees, and that's a rotation that included like Clemens and Andy Pettit and Mike Mussina and David Wells. I mean, so the names back then might have been bigger, but the way they're performing now, probably just as good as them, maybe even better. And they're doing it with names like Nestor Cortez, Luis Severino, Jamison Tyone, Jordan Montgomery. So you just got to kind of pinch yourself and see how long this is going to last. But again, the Yankee rotation has been great and can contribute that maybe to Matt Blake, maybe a lot of scouting. We don't know. But also, again, you got to compliment Brian Cashman, who, after many years, kind of his Achilles heel has been trying to put together a good, strong starting rotation. You know, he never puts a rotation that's a dumpster fire or it's terrible. It's usually adequate or good enough, but never performing at this level. So it looks like finally, after many trials and error, many injuries and many recoveries and many trades that didn't work out, finally he's got a good starting five there that, again, collectively right now is the best in baseball. I mentioned before that Miguel Andujar requested a trade from the New York Yankees just because they demoted him down to AAA. Give my take on the reason why the Yankees did that and kind of my opinion on it. But before you do, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Mentioned before, so wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, whatever, go Section 420 Talkin Yankees podcast, subscribe, and get exclusive content throughout the season and a little off season. So I mentioned Andujar requested the trade. Now you might say, why are the Yankees sending him down? Because we have Hicks doing so terrible, Gallo doing really terrible, even though he hit that home run against Detroit, but still a putrid batting average. And Miguel Andujar has been hitting well. Again, adequate left field. Not saying he's a Gold Glove or anything, but he doesn't really hurt you. And he's always, someone, again, always has a great at bat. So you figure, why do the Yankees make a decision? Well, unfortunately, it has to do with money, has to do with other prospects given up, and also do with versatility and flexibility and what Anderha could offer. So if you want to compare Andrhart to, for example, Matt Carpenter, well, again, Carpenter, first of all, he's a left-handed bat, which the Yankees need more of. Miguel is righty, and still the Yankees, even though they've done a better job of it, are still kind of more of a righty-hitting team. So that's why you kind of give the nod of someone like a Carpenter over a Miguel Andujar. And if you look at Tim LeCastro, he's someone you spent money on, and again, he gives you a little more weaponry of being a base stealer, so someone you could bring on late in the game to steal a base, which is something Miguel Andujar really can't do, as well as LeCastro's defense is much better than Andujar's. I'm not saying Andujar's a scrub, but again, LeCastro has a much important situation where he could play center field as well. Again, just from speed and all, that's why you would keep someone like him on the roster versus Miguel Andujar. And then lastly, probably the biggest head scratcher, well, two head scratchers, but one of them would be Aaron Hicks, who's, again, off to a miserable start this season. Again, Anderha has been playing harder and earning it more, you would say, than Hicks has. But the problem is with Hicks, you invested a lot of money with him. You have 3 years left on that contract. No one's going to take a trade for that guy right now. So you kind of stuck with him. You can, technically cut him and say, hey, just get out of here. But again, with 3 years left on that deal, baseball's guaranteed contract, you just can't do that. So you kind of stuck with him. And then going back to Gallo, who they picked up last season, the Yankees had to give up some chips to get him. Nothing big, but again, you gave up prospects to have him. And again, the advantage he has over Anderha is, again, he's probably a little bit better defensively. He won the Gold Glove last year. And he's a left-handed bat, again, something the Yankees just need more of than what Anderha could provide. So it's just a bad situation for Andrhart. It's not really like a situation where, years past, when he kind of got beat out by Gio Urshela at third base, you could kind of understood that because Urshela was the better defensive third baseman, and Anderha was kind of booting balls a little bit, and there was really no place for him at the time. So at that point, you could understand why Anderha was sent down to the minors. And he had some, Anderha would have a few of these nagging injuries, shoulder injuries, wrist injuries for a while. So kind of hurt himself there. But this season, again, Anderha has been healthy. He's been playing well. Again, he's learned to be a decent left fielder, but there's just really no spot for him. And this is what he could offer, which is a right-handed bat, which the Yankees don't really need. And he doesn't really do anything extraordinary other than hitting. He's not a great base stealer. He's not a supreme defender. So there's not else he can really offer that the other guys can offer. Maybe if he was a switch hitter, they'd consider it. But again, he can't. All he could offer them is a decent righty bat, which he's a bit of a slash hitter. He hit a double here right now, but he doesn't offer you what other can offer. And again, you have money invested in Hicks. It's not realistic unless you get to the point where the guy goes like 2 months without getting a hit. They're just still going to keep him on the roster just with the money he makes. And again, Gallo, just because he's a left-handed bat. He's a named player. Again, he's having a miserable season overall so far this season, but he has accomplished more in his past than Ando has. So just for those reasons, you're going to kind of keep him around. So we'll see what happens. Maybe there's an injury along the way that opens the door for Andrhart. I don't think they're dying to get rid of him because, again, once a player wants to get out of there, the other team that, let's say, you want to trade with, well, they know, hey, your guy's desperate to get out of there, so I'm not going to offer you anything great. So the Yankees are going to get a great offer from him. So we'll just have to see how it works out. But, unfortunately, it looks like that might be the end of the road for Anderhart just because he doesn't make any money and he does have the option to send them down. So they're going to do that. And you have money invested in all these other players. And this is the way it is. Unfortunately, this is a bad break for Anderhart. Some good news for the Yankees in terms of Zach Britton. You might remember him. Unfortunately, had Tommy John surgery last season and been working his way back. Well, finally throwing off an official baseball mound down in Tampa, working his way back. Again, a kind of instrumental weapon for the Yankees. Was their kind of eighth inning man, and once in a while, if he had to, would be able to close out a game, getting a former closer for the Baltimore Orioles. But had the Achilles rip, worked his way back from that, and then now worked his way back from the Tommy John surgery. No really timetable when he would be back. The Yankees could certainly use him, just given the fact that Chad Green's done for the year, a little Tommy John surgery of his own. And the Yankees will, again, could be, could always use another arm in there because you just don't know how players are up and down. But again, it's good that the Yankees at least have the emergence of Clay Holmes, who probably is going to be the eighth inning person moving forward once Chapman comes back. But of course, if Chapman starts to fall off the rails a little bit, you could put Clay Holmes in there and he could get the job done already with 8 saves this season for the Yankees when they needed to, and is again on a scoreless streak of 26 innings of consecutive scoreless baseball. So hopefully he keeps that going. But maybe again we get Zach Britton back towards the end of the year, just to add another arm to the Yankee bullpen, which has overall been pretty strong. But again, the story so far of the Yankees of this 2022 season has been the starting rotation. And you see a lot of stuff with them, just kind of the fraternity, the little brotherhood they have. They all watch each other warm up in the bullpen for the game. Supposedly that's a tradition that got started with CC Sabathia, and kind of Cole took the reins of that, and he's kind of the headmaster there. And you always see them, in the dugout. You'll see Cole with Tyrone Montgomery, kind of those two always huddled up together, kind of looking at an iPad, looking at some scouting reports. So you could probably see this. Probably a lot of this is the leadership of Garrett Cole, and they all just try to one up each other. That's probably just part of the reason they, if one goes 7 innings, the other wants to do the same or more. So that's probably just why they all just have this sort of good chemistry and good brotherhood, and you just hope it keeps up throughout the rest of the season. And again, knock on wood so far, unfortunately, in terms of the starting pitching, so far no injuries. One's going to come up somewhere down the road, but again, so far overall, the guys have been very healthy. And reason being is that this is overall a very young rotation. When you have a fact where maybe Cole in his very early 30s is like the old man there, that's in a very good spot to be. So thanks for tuning in. So if you're the New York Yankees, 1/3 of the way into the season, we'll look at one of the best Yankee teams probably in the past 20 years. And right now, if you're the Yankees, you want to make sure you get Chapman back and healthy. Again, he should be the closer. That's probably the best place for him, as well as Loizaga, just so he could be the 7th or 8th setup man to join Clay Holmes in that little trio there. And of course, for the Yankees offensively, got Stanton back great. Hopefully his calf is healed, and he can start mashing the ball again with Aaron Judge. So make sure you subscribe, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your podcast. Get additional content throughout the week. So you love seeing me, but you can hear me more throughout the week. So wherever you get your podcast, go Section 420 Talkin Yankees and subscribe.